So I need to warn you, fair warning, I am new to this practice of talking about social policy. That's because until recently, I was engaged in implementing social policy. As the commissioner of New York City's largest public social services agency, I was responsible for the day-to-day operation of some of our nation's biggest anti-poverty programs. At the New York City Human Resources Administration, we administered everything from cash welfare to food stamp benefits, to Medicaid eligibility, to child support collections, and a host of other programs in between. So my perspective comes from someone who's seen these programs work day to day over a long period of time. And what I learned and what I saw was that government can create an environment whereby people in poverty can move into work and raise their incomes. But it takes adherence to certain core principles. And those principles are: we must require work in return for assistance. We must also reward work by making low wages go farther. We must always talk about two-parent families and the importance of mothers and fathers in the appropriate raising of children. And finally, we must be vigilant about promoting a job-producing, growing economy. Low-wage jobs, middle-wage jobs, high-wage jobs, providing opportunity to low-income Americans. Now, I suppose it's possible that you might be thinking, how did someone like me get into the poverty-fighting world to begin with? I mean, look at me. Frankly, I look kind of Republican, even conservative, and I am. But I chose to make my career helping struggling Americans because of what I saw in my father's career working in the Civil Rights Division of the United States Justice Department. He came to Washington in 1960 at the end of the Eisenhower administration and joined the Civil Rights Division at that point and stayed through President Kennedy's administration and almost to the end of the Johnson administration. And during that time, he was engaged or involved in all of the really difficult problems and conflicts that occurred during that time. And it was positive and forward-looking, and it made our country better, and ultimately, it was inspiring because it showed that government and us Americans could improve our country. And then, at the request of his friend Robert Kennedy, we moved to New York City, where Robert Kennedy had started a small anti-poverty program in Bedford-Stuyvesant, one of the largest slums in America at the time, a neighborhood of 500,000 New Yorkers in the central Brooklyn. And my father was involved in a small program bringing economic development and private sector investment and some real estate development. And over his experience there, they made some small gains for a few people on a few blocks in Brooklyn. But meanwhile, larger forces were at work. Larger forces were at work, and they were the welfare entitlement state that had said, as part of the reforms that took place in the 60s and 70s, we will provide assistance to people without regard to what they do, as a matter of right or a matter of entitlement. So while a few people were benefited by the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation, hundreds of thousands were sucked in to a life of dependency and no work. And our city was almost brought to its knees. So when I had a chance to go to work in the government, I had those two things in my mind: success in civil rights, not really success in poverty. And so I joined the Pataki administration in 1995, luckily right at the beginning of the welfare reform movement in America. Governors Engler, Governors Thompson, Bill Clinton, Newt Gingrich decided to change welfare as we know it. And I worked there for Governor Pataki and then for Mayor Giuliani for that entire period. And what did we do? We required work in return for public assistance. We made it a clear expectation that it was a reciprocal relationship between the receiver of assistance and the provider of aid. In that regard, we changed the names of our offices. They used to be called, think of this, the welfare offices in New York City used to be called income maintenance centers. Income maintenance centers. We changed them to be job centers. We paid people that tried to help people get jobs only if they got jobs. We paid for performance. We talked about child support enforcement. We said children need two parents contributing. There's a responsibility for both parents to care for their children. And we created an environment where if there wasn't a job or someone couldn't work, we said to them, well, we need you to be involved in the schedule and rigor on a day-to-day basis of something that looks like a job. We'll provide assistance, but we need you to be in a circumstance where you're mirroring the schedule and rigor of employment. So that's the tough stuff. We also rewarded work. So public health insurance for low-wage workers, we were generous with it. Food stamp benefits for working people, we provided it. Child care assistance, the earned income tax credit, we promoted these supports for low-wage workers so wages could go further. We talked about family, we promoted two-parent families, and always, we understood that in order to succeed at its best, we needed a thriving, job-producing economy. And we didn't make any disparagements about dead-end jobs or low-wage jobs. We said we need jobs. Any job is a step up. So we promoted hospitality and restaurants and healthcare. And every time I saw those economic development guys in the halls of government, I said, make it happen. We need jobs. Require work, reward work, talk about family, promote a strong economy. Those are the four principles of success in this endeavor. So what happened? Where were the statistics? So everyone knows welfare caseloads plummeted. The peak welfare caseload in New York City was 1.1 million cash welfare recipients. 1 in 7 New Yorkers was receiving the dole. Recently, last year, before I left, we were down to 350,000 out of a city of more than 8 million. Tremendous decline. But that wasn't our greatest achievement. Our greatest achievement was work rates for never married mothers. Work rates for never married mothers. The very people who were on cash welfare in the first place. The very people who the programs was originally set up to help. It went from 43% to 63%. 20% point increase. Unprecedented and remarkable, and it happened all across the country, not only in New York City. Child poverty in New York City declined dramatically in the late 90s, up into the 2000s, from 43% to 28%. Significant decline in child poverty. And what was the most compelling statistic of all? And this is a national statistic. African American child poverty in the United States dropped from 44% in 1994 to 30% in 2001. Now think of that. Almost half African American children were in poverty before welfare reform, less than a third after welfare reform. Now, since the early 2000s, I have to say, I'm not sure we've kept focused on those core principles. We've gotten away from the require work requirements. We've made rewarding work sometimes replace work, so that some of the benefits we provide disincentives to people being in work. We haven't talked about the importance of two-parent families enough. And most egregiously, we've allowed our economy to not grow. The greatest tragedy of the anemic recovery we have been through these last 5 years is the damage it's done to poor Americans. So, from someone who's been in the business, who's seen it work successfully and seen it maybe not work so successfully, require work, reward work, talk about family, promote a strong economy. Those are the keys. Now, I have one last point I want to make, and this is an important one. It is a common desire to promise an outcome, to guarantee that we will, if we do this, we will guarantee people's rising safely into the middle class. Governments can't promise that. They can't guarantee that. People make that happen. People make that happen if the environment is created for that to happen. So to promise an outcome of that kind, to guarantee it as if government could provide it, it's a false promise and it's a harmful promise. But if we create an environment whereby people in poverty can move into work and increase their incomes, you know what? They'll do it. They did it before. They proved all of the commentators and all of the prognosticators wrong about what would happen if we went to a work-based welfare program. They were the heroes of welfare reform. And we need to get back to that kind of policy to help poor Americans in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. We'd like to know what you think about fighting poverty, so tell us in the comments below. Then please help us spread the word by sharing this video. For more Vision Talks, click the subscribe button and visit the website thepursuitofhappiness.com.